Part 25. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chaoji Depeng. Chapter 243. Mr. Wang, you don't think that I can really improve a person's cultivation from the early stage of the second stage to the late stage of the third stage, right? Looking at the tearful dynasty, Chen Ronghuo shook his head and smiled. I know. Wang Chao nodded seriously. He really knows. After his cultivation exploded significantly, he directly reached the late third level. After he felt the powerful power emerging from the soul of the divine Bao hidden deep in his body, and some messages coming from the soul of the divine Bao, he already knew that his cultivation level had improved over the years. Reason for slowness. However, although he knew the reason, he didn't know whether it would be possible for him to awaken the soul of the divine Bao when his lifespan was exhausted if Chen Ronghuo didn't help him, thereby reaching the late third level and gaining 300 years of life. He took a deep breath, but if it weren't for the Lord, I might not be able to wait until my talent awakens, so the dynasty is still willing to follow the Lord forever. When he said this, he released a trace of his momentum, instantly dried his tears, and revealed his resolute face again. At this time, he still had the deep wrinkles on his face. But although his appearance has not changed, if you look carefully, you can feel the powerful aura emanating from him. This kind of aura is not the aura of Wang Chao, who is a late third level cultivator. But it comes from the strong confidence that comes from the bottom of his heart. Haha, it's an honor for me to have Mr. Wang help me. Chen Ronghuo laughed, stepped forward cordially, and helped Wang Chao up. With his eyes flashing, he identified the new attributes of the dynasty. He immediately knew that he had really gained a general this time. Dynasty, late third level warrior, late third level divine archer warlock. Qualification, 5. Innate ability, soul of the divine Bao, possessing the talent of divine archery. The speed of practicing any secret Bao martial arts skills is tens to hundreds of times that of ordinary practitioners. At the same time, the soul of the divine Bao can be turned into a divine Bao, and the power of one's own blood and soul can be turned into arrows to shoot arrows of blood and soul. In addition, the soul of the divine Bao can also greatly enhance the power of the arrows shot. Note, the soul of the divine Bao comes with its own skill, the divine transformation of the Bao, and the secret skill of nine heavens divine shooting. The main change in the attributes of the dynasty is the awakening of the soul of the divine Bao. But this change in talent alone is enough to increase his strength by an incredible amount. Especially when the dynasty changes the training method to the Bao divine transformation and masters the secret technique of nine heavens divine shooting, it will definitely become even more powerful. Brother Wang, does this subordinate of yours have the same name as you? At this time, Xuanhuan, who had some bad premonitions in his heart, suddenly asked Chen Ronghuo. When he asked a question, his heart suddenly rose in his throat. At the same time, he also made plans to escape immediately if something went wrong. After such a long time, his injuries have been somewhat suppressed and he has regained a certain ability to protect himself. Capture him. Upon hearing Xuanhuan's inquiry, Chen Ronghuo turned his head, glanced at Xuanhuan, and said calmly, "You." Xuanhuan's pupils shrank, and his expression suddenly changed. As soon as his body moves, he will shoot away outside the important town of Longtan. Call. But at this moment, a figure shrouded in black suddenly walked out of the void behind him, stretched out a big hand covered with cold scales, and grabbed his hand like a chicken. Neck. Feeling the cold touch on his neck, Xuanhuan suddenly had all the hairs on his body standing up, and he didn't dare to move. It was Huanglin who took action. When Chen Ronghuo returned to the important town of Longtan, Huanglin felt it and had already lurked over in advance. Not far away, the dynasty, which had just broken through to the late third level, originally wanted to take action after Chen Ronghuo's words fell. But before he could take action, Huanglin got ahead of him. He looked deeply at Huanglin and said nothing. "Brother Wang, What do you mean? Ma Zixuan looked at Chen Ronghuo and asked sternly. Just when he asked, he knew that he was probably going to fall into trouble this time. What's the meaning? Chen Ronghuo glanced at Ma Zixuan and said calmly, let me introduce myself formally. My real name is Chen Ronghuo, the Lord of Lushwiven Town, Chen Ronghuo. Immediately, without waiting for Ma Zixuan to react, he waved his hand and said, take him down, interrogate him strictly, and ask about his origins and whether anyone else came to our island with him. In addition, don't forget to ask Jenkins and to add a few more seals to him. Don't kill him either. Ma Zixuan was still useful to him, but it would be bad if he died. At the same time, through the identification skills of ancient books, Chen Ronghuo knew that Ma Zixuan was not so easy to kill because he practiced a special secret technique. Yes. Huang Lin agreed, then grabbed Ma Zixuan's neck and retreated. However, during the process, he glanced at Ma Zixuan in surprise. Unexpectedly, this person was not from Beiwu Island. And I don't know how such a cultivator with the third level of peak cultivation could be so miserable and so naive. Although he was so seriously injured, he still trusted his lord and was brought all the way to his hometown by his lord. Huang Lin could only express his admiration for this. Chen Ronghuo from Lushwiven Town, the Chen Ronghuo who scared Long Fiheng, the lord of Longtan Town, away. At this time, Ma Zixuan, who was grabbed by the neck and carried away by Huang Lin, was muttering to himself again and again in his heart, with endless anger on his face. He was really deceived. He was deceived from the beginning. He was used as a gun by Chen Ronghuo as soon as they met. And he not only helped Chen Ronghuo, but also seriously injured the Xianbing toad. After that, he took the initiative to follow Chen Ronghuo to Longtan Town and fell into the trap. Thinking of this, Ma Zixuan's heart was immediately tightened. But Chen Ronghuo ignored the almost overflowing depression in Ma Zixuan's heart. After Huang Lin took Ma Zixuan away, he turned his head and looked at Wang Chao and said, Old Wang, you just broke through, go back and consolidate your cultivation first. Leave the patrol of the town to others. No need to do that. Wang Chao shook his head stubbornly, I patrol the town to consolidate my cultivation. That works. Chen Ronghuo thought that Wang Chao could practice while walking, sitting, or lying down, so he didn't persuade him anymore. Then when everything was over, he picked up the black chain that bound the black ice toad and brought it to the Lord's mansion. After running all the way, the black ice toad is really dying now. Come, eat this thing first, and then we can talk about it. Chen Ronghuo threw the black ice toad to the square in front of the Lord's mansion, and then took out a large pot of colorful spirit honey and placed it in front of the black ice toad. The colorful spirit honey is naturally brewed by the colorful spirit butterfly. This thing has the ability to heal wounds. Although the 7-colored spirit butterfly's cultivation is too low, only at the 2nd level, the brewed spiritual honey has little effect on the 3rd level, but it can't resist Chen Ronghuo's left-hand ability. This big pot of 7-color spiritual honey is the enhanced 7-color spiritual honey that he used his left-hand ability to increase the healing attribute to 10 points. Seeing Chen Ronghuo's actions, the black ice toad lay on the ground, its chin touching the ground, and ignored it. It can't speak human language, but it can understand human language, so it knows what Chen Ronghuo is saying, and knows that Chen Ronghuo wants it to eat this pot of strange-tasting things. But is it a toad that eats everything? And this human is so bad. Who knows if the thing he gave him is poisonous? Although he feels that if he continues like this, he may die. But even if he dies, he doesn't want to be poisoned to death. Chen Ronghuo stood in front of the black ice toad, watching its big head motionless, without any intention of sticking out its tongue to eat the 7-color spiritual honey, and frowned slightly. Do I have to catch bugs for you? He thought of toads, which eat bugs, and his expression suddenly became a little ugly. How could he have the time to catch bugs for a toad? But suddenly, he seemed to think of something, and he suddenly stepped forward and added the few toad-attracting properties he had taken out of the Xianbing toad incense to the colorful spiritual honey in the pot. Huh! Just after Chen Ronghuo did this, the Xianbing toad's eyes, as big as its face, suddenly glared, and the light burst out, like a last ray of light, and its eyes fell on the colorful spiritual honey in front of it. Then it opened its mouth and shot out its cold tongue with a whoosh. It rolled the whole pot of colorful spiritual honey into its mouth. Beiji, Beiji, Beiji. It smells so good. Even if I am poisoned to death, it is worth it. The Xianbing toad's face, which was covered with big lumps, showed an expression of endless aftertaste. Chen Ronghuo saw the scene and a strange smile appeared on his face. This big guy's desire for delicious food is just like that of a fat cat. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 244. While the Xianbing toad was tasting the delicious food, Chen Ronghuo came to his side and frowned as he looked at its enlarged appearance. But he finally put his left hand on it. He gave the colorful spiritual honey to the black ice toad to prevent it from dying. But not to wait for it to recover and fight against myself. Then. The black ice toad's power add 1. The black ice toad's extreme cold attribute add 1. The sole origin of the black ice toad add 1. When the Xianbing toad was unable to resist, Chen Ronghuo took out its attributes one by one. The black ice toad is a third-level peak demon. It is far more difficult for Chen Ronghuo to extract attributes from it than from the previous mutated villain. But Chen Ronghuo has plenty of time and is not in a hurry. Time passes. The night passed quickly. The next day, under the sunlight, Xianbing toad lay limply in a corner of the Lord's mansion in the important town of Longtan. It's like hibernation isn't over yet. After a night of hard work, if Chen Ronghuo hadn't returned some of the attributes from the Xianbing toad after finding out its properties, I'm afraid the Xianbing toad would have been wiped out by him. In other words, Chen Ronghuo now only needs to pat the Xianbing toad with his left hand, and he can get out whatever attributes he really wants from it. Because to a certain extent, the black ice toad is basically a monster he created using attributes one by one. The only pity is that Chen Ronghuo can only take back those attributes by touching the black ice toad with his left hand. Otherwise, if he could take back all the attributes of the black ice toad he combined into the attribute space anytime and anywhere, then he can definitely use this method to conquer a lot of subordinates. In that case, the speed of his rise in this world would have reached an unknown extent. It's so hot today. Chen Ronghuo walked to the square, looked up at the blazing sun, and then cast his gaze on the black ice toad lying in the corner. He smiled and said, "Come on, let me cool down." Xianbing toad glanced at Chen Ronghuo with his big eyes open, unmoved. At this time, it already regretted eating the pot of colorful spiritual honey that Chen Ronghuo had eaten yesterday. After eating the pot of colorful spiritual honey, Chen Ronghuo didn't know what he did to it. Although most of its injuries healed in a short period of time, for some reason, it felt that from then on, less than 1/1000th of its strength was left. Seeing the appearance of Xianbing toad, Chen Ronghuo shook his head, turned his hand, took out a steamed bun, and tossed it around in his hand. Suddenly, Xianbing toad's eyes widened and he stared at the steamed bun in Chen Ronghuo's hand. This steamed bun was surprisingly given a bit of the toad-inducing property of Xuanbing's toad-inducing fragrance by Chen Ronghuo. Chen Ronghuo discovered that this property was very special and would not be digested after being eaten by the black ice toad. So last night, the toad-attracting property in the pot of colorful spiritual honey that was eaten by the Xianbing toad was brought back by him after a night of hard work. After glancing at Xianbing toad, Chen Ronghuo smiled lightly and said, "I said, the weather is a bit hot. Call." The Xianbing toad lying in the corner, after Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, immediately moved his huge cheeks and spit out a breath of cold air. In an instant, the entire square was filled with a cool feeling. When everything was over, Xianbing Toad looked at Chen Ronghuo with an anxious expression. A smile appeared on Chen Ronghuo's face. He suddenly discovered that this big toad had a simple mind and was quite interesting. Good performance, keep up the good work. He broke the steamed bun in his hand into two halves, threw half away and gave it to Xianbing Toad. The other half was collected by him again. Lord. At this time, Huanglin came in from the outside. Mazixuan was very strict in his words. I interrogated him repeatedly, but he always said that he was from an outer island and that he was the only one. But I looked at his expression and it seemed that what he said was not the truth. Really, a sneer appeared on Chen Ronghuo's face. Let's go, I'll go take a look with you. In the dungeon of the important town of Longtan, Mazixuan, who had not yet recovered from his injuries and had been sealed by Zhenqian-san, was tied up under huge iron ropes in an awkward manner. When he saw Chen Ronghuo walking into the dungeon, his eyes immediately showed an endless fierce light. Chen Ronghuo, he glared angrily, I treat you like a brother, but you treat me like this. If you can, kill me. Believe it or not, if you kill me, I will definitely turn into a ghost and come to settle the score with you. At this time, Mazixuan was struck with countless seals by Zhenqian-san, and even if he wanted to commit suicide, he couldn't do it. I believe it. When Chen Ronghuo heard this, he smiled lightly, I understand the ghost reincarnation technique. Mazixuan's ferocious expression suddenly froze, and he looked at Chen Ronghuo in disbelief. Chen Ronghuo learned from the identification skills of ancient books that the reincarnation of ghosts was a magical ability of Mazixuan. Able to reincarnate as a ghost from other places after death. Of course, once this secret technique is used, there will be many restrictions after reincarnating into a powerful ghost. The strength will also be greatly reduced, and I don't know how long it will take before I can cultivate to the current level again. Seeing Mazixuan's expression, Chen Ronghuo said calmly, how about it, can you tell me everything you know now? Mazixuan remained silent. It was not until a long while later that he looked at Chen Ronghuo frantically and said, besides me, you also captured my junior brother. He hated his master and his senior brother equally. But in comparison, he hated Chen Ronghuo more, so he didn't tell Chen Ronghuo anything. Because he knew that as long as his master was given enough time and his master escaped from the strange mountain, with his master's character, he would definitely turn the entire Longtan town into a ghost den. But now, Chen Ronghuo seemed to have captured more than just him, which made him nervous. That's why he used the word junior brother to test Chen Ronghuo. Is it true that more than Mazixuan came from the demon sealing land? Chen Ronghuo's mind moved. But he shook his head without revealing his expression and said, tell me what you know. Tell me how many people there are in total, who came from the demon-sealed land. How strong are these people, and what is their relationship with you? And what exactly is the demon-sealed land? I don't kill people, if you listen to me, I promise I won't kill you. He was afraid that Mazixuan was testing him, so he didn't answer at all. He just used ambiguous words and some facts to stimulate Mazixuan. In terms of cunning, he is no less cunning than some old monsters who have lived for many years. You really know it? Mazixuan was depressed when he heard it. If Chen Ronghuo hadn't captured his senior brother, or even his master, how could he know the demon-sealed land? How could he know that he practiced the secret technique of reincarnation of evil spirits, which is unique to his master? Thanks to the 100 coins reward from Moueshi. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 245. Under Chen Ronghuo's attack, Mazixuan finally couldn't resist and told everything he knew. Without knowing how much Chen Ronghuo knew, he had to say. Moreover, he thought that besides him, Chen Ronghuo also captured his senior brothers and even his master. So he didn't dare not tell the truth. The place where demons are sealed? Tong Kun, a mid-level 4th level cultivator who was suppressed by a strange mountain? And Xie Dongjun, a 3rd level peak practitioner? When he got what he wanted from Mazixuan, Chen Ronghuo suddenly became thoughtful. Have someone keep him under strict guard. Then Chen Ronghuo gave instructions and walked out of the dungeon. Mazixuan is a 3rd level peak cultivator. He still has a lot of things to do next and has no time to extract attributes from Mazixuan. 9 o'clock in the morning. Chen Ronghuo got ready. Most of the thousands of 1st level cultivators from Longtan Town were dispatched. Let these practitioners, led by a 2nd level practitioner, rush to the villages leading to the floating island. This move is exactly what he did to open up channels for various villages. Arrangements were made to lure villagers from various villages to the important town of Longtan. At the same time, before this, Chen Ronghuo had already consumed his soul power and deduced the location suitable for these teams to attack. They would not encounter an invincible monster and suffer too much loss. Of course, nothing is absolute. Chen Ronghuo went for a walk last night, and coupled with his subsequent deductions, he already knew that the reason why the demons from the Black Demon Star did not come to Longtan to cause trouble was because most of those demons had territorial awareness. Most of them will not go anywhere else except their own territory. However, there are also surprises. For example, the scorpion-tailed ice wolf he encountered last night was a wandering wolf with no fixed territory. It is precisely because of this that he must lead the villagers from the surrounding villages to the important town of Longtan as soon as possible. Huang Lin, you guys come with me. After arranging everyone, Chen Ronghuo called Huang Lin and others and rushed over to where Tong Kun and others were mentioned by Mazixuan. A mid-level 4th level cultivator. Especially a 4th level cultivator who wants to kill the entire island and refine the 10,000 ghost banners cannot be left behind under any circumstances. At any other time, Chen Ronghuo would have been able to run as far as he could when meeting a mid-level 4th level cultivator. But when the mid-level 4th level cultivator named Tong Kun was pinned down by a strange mountain peak, it would be out of character for him not to beat up the drowned dog. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several figures rushed out of the important town of Longtan together. In order to kill Tong Kun, Chen Ronghuo did not even leave a strong person to sit in the important town of Longtan. Even Dynasty, who had just become a 3rd level cultivator, was brought along by him. Meow. Suddenly, when a group of people were halfway through the journey, a flash of orange flashed through the forest like lightning, rushing straight towards Chen Ronghuo. Lord, be careful. Wang Chao was startled and grabbed it out of thin air with 2 big hands. A lilac illusory divine bow suddenly formed. He drew the divine bow, condensed his blood energy into the arrow, and aimed at the orange color in the blink of an eye. Stop. Chen Ronghuo was startled and hurriedly reached out to stop Wang Chao. It was the fat cat that came running. In fact, he had already sensed that the fat cat was quickly closing the distance with him. But he didn't expect that Dynasty would react so quickly and almost hurt Shamao. Meow. Shamao's fat figure flashed and got into Chen Ronghuo's arms. After rubbing his head against him, he suddenly stuck his head out and glanced at Wang Chao. It was as if he was asking Chen Ronghuo who this old man was and why he was so vicious. Chen Ronghuo had no choice but to introduce each person and the cat. The Lord's cat? After listening to Chen Ronghuo's introduction, Wang Chao was a little surprised and a little enlightened. I thought of all the legends I had heard before. After Shamao arrived, he kept lying in Chen Ronghuo's arms, rubbing against him. Chen Ronghuo touched it with his hands and let it act coquettishly. Not long after, the group approached the place mentioned by Mazixuan. Chen Ronghuo did not approach rashly. Instead, Huang Lin was asked to check on the situation first. After Xuanhuan left, he came back within a few minutes. He said to Chen Ronghuo, "Lord, there are indeed two cultivators there. One was short and fat, and should be the senior brother Xuanhuan mentioned, Xiedong Jun. The other one, who was pinned under a strange mountain peak, should be Xuanhuan's master. Even if a mid-level 4th level cultivator is suppressed under the mountain peak, it will be difficult to deal with them." Chen Ronghuo looked thoughtful. "Lord, we can try to lure Xiedong Jun out, kill him first, and then deal with Tongkan dynasty on the side suggested. Tongkan is a good mid-level 4th level cultivator, but he can't move, so he is the best target." "Yin Xiedong Jun, you can let me do it?" Xuanhuan said. Jing Qinzan also nodded and said, "I can set up the formation in advance as a trap." Zhu Deipen glanced at Li Haishui, who shook his head slightly at him. Zhu Deipen thought that Li Haishui wanted him to speak, so he thought about it and suddenly said bravely, "We have fists." As soon as he said this, Li Haishui was stunned for a moment and wanted to crawl directly into the ground. After looking at Zhu Deipen, the other people all smiled and said nothing. Originally, Chen Ronghuo, who was feeling relieved, could not say anything except helplessness after hearing Zhu Deipen's words and taking a deep breath. Zhu Deipen has not been so messy for a long time. Shaking his head, Chen Ronghuo pondered for a while and tested the others. "We must kill Tongkan and Xiedong Jun. But no matter what, one of them is a 4th level mid-stage cultivator and the other is a 3rd level peak cultivator. It's a bit too wasteful to kill them like this. So, do you have any other good ideas?" "Other good ideas?" When they heard this, they frowned. After a moment, Xuanhuan's eyes lit up and said, "The Lord means that with the help of their strength, we can find a way to let them clear some powerful demons on the island for us." "That's right." Chen Ronghuo nodded. "Two powerful monsters are hard to lure." But after hearing what Chen Ronghuo said, several people were a little troubled. The monsters that Chen Ronghuo wanted to lure were definitely not ordinary monsters. Ordinary monsters, they could kill them by themselves, without the need for Tongkan and the others. So the monsters that Chen Ronghuo wanted to lure were at least the peak of the 3rd level, or even the 4th level monsters on the island. Seeing the expressions of several people, Chen Ronghuo smiled faintly. "You should all remember what I told you, that a large number of low-level monsters on the island will attract the hatred of powerful monsters, right? What does the Lord mean?" As soon as these words came out, except for Zhu Deipen, who was still a little confused, Xuanhuan, Wang Chao and others instantly understood what Chen Ronghuo meant. Seeing this, Chen Ronghuo nodded. More than 10 minutes later, a large group of hard-haired black rats, like a black rat sea, ran from a distance. Meow. In front of this group of hard-haired rats, an orange-yellow, fat-looking, ordinary big cat looked back from time to time. At the group of hard-haired mice, the cat hooked its claws again and again, provoking them to the utmost. Squeak. Seeing this, the mice immediately chased the orange cat frantically. It was the first time they saw such an arrogant cat that dared to provoke them. Thanks to Xingyi Chongming for the 100 coin reward. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 246. In the forest, under a strange mountain several tens of meters high, Tongkan was suppressed below. Although he was suppressed by this strange mountain, his strength was not affected. Soon, the sound of rats running reached his ears. "Dongjun, be careful, something is coming," Tongkan warned. He was injured in the previous battle with the Blue Lightning Thunderbird and was not suitable for fighting. "Master, don't worry," Xiedong replied immediately. Probably because this place was originally the territory of the Stone Ball monster, in the nearly 1 day since Ma Zixuan left, no monsters have come here. In the distance, Fat Cat led a group of hard-haired rats to run for a while. After getting closer and closer to Tongkun and Xiedongjun, a hint of teasing flashed in his eyes, and then he lowered his body and sank his whole body into the soil. I, fat cat, can burrow underground. Huh. A large group of hard-haired mice ran past the fat cat, but they didn't see it and continued to run forward. This group of hard-haired mice were demons in a nearby valley. It was a stretch to even call them demons, because only a few of these things could actually reach the first level. Most of the others, although they also had a trace of the original magic energy of the black magic star in their bodies, could not even reach the first level, not even demons. After these hard-haired mice ran over the fat cat moved and drilled out of the ground again. Its ability to burrow underground was acquired after it devoured the earth dragon earthworm in the important town of Mentang some time ago. After appearing, the fat cat looked at the hard-haired mice that were going away, and its body changed, and it suddenly changed from a fat cat to a big fat cat. Meow. The next moment, it made a meow that was many times louder than before at the group of hard-haired mice. A group of hard-haired mice who couldn't find the fat cat heard the terrifying cry and turned their heads. When they saw the fat cat's huge body like a giant tiger, their thighs trembled, as if something was about to flow out, and they ran forward quickly with their tails between their legs. The fat cat showed a proud look, took big steps, and slowly followed behind, cat playing with mice. Squeak. A group of mice fled madly under the pursuit of the fat cat. They were not afraid of ordinary cats at all. But a big cat like the fat cat could eat 100 or 80 of them in one bite. Suddenly, the fat cat paused and stopped after seeing Tongkun suppressed under the mountain in the distance, and Xiedongjun who was waiting for battle beside the mountain. But the group of mice, while fleeing madly, didn't care so much and rushed over directly. It turned out to be a stupid tiger and a group of lowly mice. In the distance, Tongkun and Xiedongjun saw the scene and breathed a sigh of relief. Dongjun, kill all these rats, and then use the soul flag to absorb their souls. Tongkun's eyes flashed. Before, he had always fallen into the misunderstanding of killing people and plundering souls. But he forgot that this time the world changed, and a large group of demons came from nowhere. Killing these demons and obtaining souls can also be used to sacrifice the 10,000 ghosts flag. Yes. Xiedongjun responded, and then he looked at the rats running towards him. Between his palms and claws, black air was everywhere, as if possessed by a fierce ghost. The rolling black air instantly turned into an extremely huge hand and grabbed the rats. Huh! With one grab, a terrifying suction force was formed, and thousands of rats were all caught in his hands. Then he squeezed hard with his big hand condensed with ghost energy, and all the rats were instantly crushed to death in his palms, and only the sound of rustling sounded from his hands. Immediately, copper coins fell from the gaps between the big hands. And a few secret treasures that looked extremely ordinary at first glance. Master, these mice are so strange, they don't have souls. Suddenly, Xiedongjun said in surprise after killing these mice. No soul. Tongkun frowned when he heard this. But then he thought of the 4th level stone ball monster that he had killed before. Soon after his death, the shattered body suddenly disappeared in front of him, and he was relieved. Since there is no soul, forget it. Tongkun shook his head. It's a pity. In this way, he can't refine the 10,000 ghosts banner by hunting these monsters. At this time, Xiedongjun suddenly found that the silly tiger that chased the mice before had disappeared. He didn't care about this. He just thought that the silly tiger was scared and ran away. Hiss. Just at this moment, strange cries came from afar. What is it again? Tongkun and Xiedongjun frowned. Although killing those mice resulted in some copper coins and 2 treasures. But for them, a few copper coins and 2 ordinary treasures made almost no difference. Swish. The grass was bent. From afar, a large group of black snakes with single horns swam over from afar. This time, it was even stranger. Just now, there was a stupid tiger chasing after the group of mice. This time, there was nothing behind this group of snakes. After those snakes felt the aura that Xie Dongjun could exude, they only made a slight disturbance and then continued to rush towards them. "Master, something seems wrong," Xie Dongjun said cautiously. "This situation is obviously wrong. How could it be such a coincidence that in a short period of time, two groups of low-level demons came to their place? Just kill him." Tong Kun said coldly, "These one-horned snakes and those hard-haired mice just now are not strong. Even if you kill them, it won't take much effort. Moreover, there will definitely not be too many groups of low-level demons like this nearby. You kill them and wait to see if there are other monsters coming." "Yes," Xie Dongjun responded. Following him, he took a step forward, stretched out his big hand again, condensed the ghostly aura, and looked forward, like a dark cloud pressing over his head. With a bang, he instantly crushed the large group of black-horned snakes that rushed towards them and exploded in them. In hand. In the distance, when the black-horned snake was being destroyed, Huanglin said to Chen Ronghuo, "Lord, all the black-horned snakes I drove were destroyed by them, but only Xie Dongjun took action, and Tong Kun did not take action. Tong Kun is injured and suppressed under the mountain. It is normal not to take action." Chen Ronghuo shook his head and didn't care. Immediately he said, "Let's wait and see if they kill thousands of low-level demons and attract powerful demons." Although Chen Ronghuo knew through the identification skills of ancient books that killing low-level demons in large numbers would attract the hatred of powerful demons. But what the limit is, I don't know yet. This time, it happened to be done through Tong Kun and Xie Dongjun. Boom! Just when Chen Ronghuo was thinking this, his ears twitched and he suddenly heard the sound of something huge approaching step by step in the distance. "It's not coming right now, is it? Is it that fast?" As soon as he had an idea, he flew up to a big tree and looked from a distance. Immediately, he saw a terrifying giant 30 or 40 meters tall with stone-like skin, holding a big green tree, climbing up the mountain and running straight to where Tong Kun and Xie Dongjun were. Thanks to Starry Night Insects for another 100 coin reward landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Dupang. Chapter 247. Greystone Giant, Early Stage 4. Talent Potential 4. Semi-Wandering Giant. Clan Ability, Petrified Body. Therefore, the Greystone Giants all have super resistance. Talent Ability 2, Huge Strength. Chen Ronghuo's eyes fell far away on the giant whose body was as tall as a tree, with a hint of admiration in his eyes. He did not expect that Xie Dongjun only killed more than 1,000 hard-haired rats and more than 1,000 black-horned snakes, but he actually attracted such a fourth-level monster. At this time, Huanglin and others also saw the huge body of the Greystone Giant and felt the terrifying aura emanating from it. Boom! As the Greystone Giant ran wildly, all the big trees in front of it were knocked down by it. Everywhere he passed was a mess. In the distance, Tong Kun, who was suppressed under the strange mountain peak, and his disciple Xie Dongjun, their expressions suddenly changed after seeing the Greystone Giant running towards them. If Tong Kun was not seriously injured and suppressed under this strange mountain, with his strength, he would not be afraid of an early stage 4th order Greystone Giant. But now, looking at the Greystone Giant running towards the two of them, Tong Kun felt extremely frightened. But before he could think of a way, the Greystone Giant, which was taller than the mountain that suppressed him, rushed to the two of them carrying a big green tree. Call! The Greystone Giant hugged the tree with both hands and roared as it smashed down. The surrounding air was crushed away, all the weeds on the ground were lying down, and sand and gravel flew, creating a terrifying storm with sheer force. Xie Dongjun, who slaughtered thousands of low-level demons, was the first to bear the brunt. Xie Dongjun's face changed wildly. As soon as his body trembled, Ghostly energy surged out of his short and fat body. In the blink of an eye, he used ghost energy to turn into a black bridge. Pulled by the black bridge, his body quickly escaped from the big tree in the hands of the grey stone giant with a whoosh. Boom! There was a loud noise, and the grey stone giant's tree crashed to the ground with a rumble after he failed. The ground trembled crazily, as if a 10-magnitude earthquake had erupted in an instant. A large number of cracks opened in a radius of several thousand meters, with ravines and devastation everywhere. Only the strange hill and the land beneath it remained motionless. Tong Kun, who was suppressed by Xiao Shan, was not affected. But when the earth cracked and countless loess was rolled back by the terrifying shock wave, his body was buried in a large amount of loess. Call. Tong Kun subconsciously exhaled in one breath, blowing away the loess that buried him, exposing his body. Boom! But at this moment, as Tong Kun blew away the loess that buried him, the grey stone giant suddenly turned his head, and a pair of eyes as cold stone, like the barrel of a gun, fell on him. Tong Kun's expression was stiff. Dongjun, come back. The next moment, he suddenly shouted sharply, I will use the forbidden technique to fight with you, come here and help me. When he finished speaking, he reached out his hand and waved forward. 3 black skulls flew out of his sleeves and flew straight towards the grey stone giant, temporarily blocking the grey stone giant's second attack. Down. In the distance, Xie Dongjun, who had just barely escaped the attack of the grey stone giant, had a cloudy expression on his face. Tong Kun left a secret hand deep in his soul, so he had to listen to Tong Kun's orders. He stepped on the ghost bridge, and in a flash, he reached Tong Kun's side and asked, Master, what forbidden technique are you planning to cast? Tong Kun glanced at Xie Dongjun, a strange look flashed in his eyes, and said coldly, of course, turning into a ghost, taking away the body. Boom! After Tong Kun finished speaking, Xie Dongjun immediately turned pale. He stepped on the ghost bridge and was about to escape. But before he could move, bursts of indescribable pain suddenly appeared in the depths of his soul, as if a large number of insects had penetrated into his head and gnawed at his soul together. This feeling went from slow to fast, and in just a moment, he felt that his consciousness was being eaten away. The remaining consciousness is scattered like white clouds floating in the sky. Damn thing! The next moment, Xie Dongjun's eyes suddenly released endless fierce light and hatred. At this time, the soul in his body has become Tong Kun's soul. And Xie Dongjun has already. The secret hand Tong Kun left in his disciple's soul was to control his life and death, but in fact, he used it as his own backup body. However, after performing the technique of transforming into a ghost and seizing the body, his cultivation level will instantly drop by 1 level. From now on, it will be very difficult to improve 1 step further, so he is really unwilling to use the secret technique unless it is absolutely necessary. Boom! At this time, the grey stone giant had swept the 3 black skulls into ashes while holding the big tree and sweeping wildly. Then it turned its gaze and landed on Tong Kun. Seeing this scene, Tong Kun's eyebrows beat. From the corner of his eye, he glanced at his real corpse not far away, suppressed under the strange mountain. He felt cruel in his heart. After grabbing the storage ring on the hand of his corpse from the air, he stepped on it. He walked out of a ghost bridge and shot out into the distance. At this time, he, like the grey stone giant, was in the early stage of the 4th level. But because he had just changed his body had not been completely transformed, and he could not immediately exert the strength of the early 4th stage. Tong Kun ran away, and the grey stone giant immediately chased him. In the distance, on a tall tree, Chen Ronghuo set his eyes on Tong Kun from a distance, a little surprised. He did not expect Tong Kun to have this ability to transform into a ghost and take over the body. Before, he did not approach Tong Kun because he was afraid of arousing Tong Kun's vigilance. So he did not know that Tong Kun had this ability. Whoosh! Tong Kun rushed through the forest. But in the rush, he did not notice that in the distant forest, at some point, there were more white mists silently. When he ran into the mist did not seem to change at all, but it was still spreading to a farther range. Boom! But when the grey stone giant also ran into the fog, the thin, barely perceptible fog suddenly shrank, like a prison, and Tong Kun and the grey stone giant were shrouded in it. Not good. In the fog, Tong Kun's face changed suddenly. He already knew that he was trapped in the formation. Then he heard a voice from outside the fog, "Lord, I trapped this grey stone giant with the formation." "Well done." Then another voice said, "Wang Chao, you try to shoot this grey stone giant with an arrow. Huang Lin, Zhu Daipen, Li Hai Shui, the three of you act according to the situation." "Yes." Then several figures responded in unison. Hearing these voices, Tong Kun's face changed, and his heart moved, and he immediately shouted, "Who is outside? Please let me out, I can deal with this grey stone giant with you." He understood. These people set up the fog array, seemingly not to deal with him, but to kill the grey stone giant. However, the grey stone giant did not stop when the fog changed, but still swung the tree and continued to kill Tong Kun. In its view, these suddenly rising fogs and the people outside the fog were all in the same group with Tong Kun. Unlike the natives of the gods' continent, many of these lives from the black magic star did not understand the common language of the gods' world. And Chen Ronghuo knew this a long time ago. After hearing Tong Kun shouting from inside and asking him to let him out, Chen Ronghuo sneered, "Who do you think you are? Noisy, Wang Chao, give him 2 arrows. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 248. Whoosh. As Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, 2 blood-red arrows pierced through the fog and shot straight at Tong Kun inside. Damn it! Feeling the terrifying energy coming from the back of his heart, Tong Kun cursed in his heart and hurriedly dodged away. Boom! Boom! After Tong Kun avoided the 2 blood-red arrows, in the blink of an eye, the 2 arrows landed on the grey stone giant holding a big tree and running rampant. In an instant, a large amount of stone chips fell from the grey stone giant, leaving 2 craters on its body. The 3rd level peak. Tong Kun's heart condensed slightly. Through induction, he knew that the attack power of the person who shot these 2 arrows was absolutely comparable to the average 3rd level peak. In the past, he would naturally have looked down upon a mere 3rd level peak cultivator. But now, when the grey stone giant was unwilling to let him go, he had to care. "People inside, listen at this moment," a subtle voice came into his ears, "my young master has just inherited the position of lord. He is young and energetic. You perform well in the formation. If you can help we killed this grey stone giant, maybe I can help you intercede and let my lord bypass you." When Tong Kun heard this, murderous intent burst out from deep in his heart. He couldn't remember how long it had been since he had been so underestimated. But after looking at the fog around him, he had to temporarily hide his murderous intention. This mist formation is arranged in an extremely weird way. Even he could not break through this formation in a short time and break out of the fog. Especially when the grey stone giant kept an eye on him. Boom boom boom. As a last resort, he could only use all his strength to fight fiercely with the grey stone giant. Fortunately, although his strength is not as good as the grey stone giant, arrows are shot from outside from time to time. At the same time, there are other 3rd level practitioners who punch from time to assist, making him and the grey stone giant indistinguishable. Regardless of top or bottom. We can't go on like this. During the fierce battle, Tong Kun's heart became colder and colder. If he continues to fight like this, Sooner or later he and the Grey Stone Giant will both be injured. When the time comes, will people outside really let him go? Thinking about it, he started to try to lure the Grey Stone Giant to the edge of the fog formation. He has an impure mind, the dynasty, reward him with 2 more arrows. But as soon as he moved, a sound that made him itch with hatred came from outside again. Yes. Then the old voice from before, after agreeing, immediately fired 2 arrows like blood dragons into the mist, and shot at him again. And this time, he could clearly feel that the 2 arrows shot this time were obviously more powerful than before. Obviously, this is a warning to him. Warn him not to make mistakes. Damn it! Tong Kun, who was hampered everywhere, felt that his state of mind, which he had cultivated for hundreds of years, was about to explode. He really couldn't figure out why he had been having bad luck since he came to the continent of the gods. Could it be? Suddenly, something moved in his heart. Suddenly he thought of the treasure he had snatched from the enemy since the demon sealing land. Because he has never been idle since he came to the continent of the gods, so even though he has taken out the treasure, he has not yet figured out what the treasure is for. But at this moment, he suddenly thought, could his unlucky situation be related to that treasure? As far as he knew, his enemy's luck seemed to have become extremely bad after he obtained this treasure. And when he thought about it, he felt more and more that this might really be the case. Otherwise, how could he be so unlucky? As soon as I arrived at the continent of the gods, I was chased by birds. And then he was attacked by a 4th-level stone ball-shaped monster. Then he was suppressed by the strange mountain. Then for no reason, so many low-level demons came to trouble him. After the low-level demon was killed, a 4th-level Grey Stone Giant came to chase him. He finally made up his mind to change his body, but before he could escape, he was trapped in this weird mist formation again. Moreover, outside the fog, there was such an annoying voice that was always against him. All of this really made him almost collapse. Whoosh! Thinking like this, he gritted his teeth and immediately took out the treasure from the storage ring during the battle. This is an odd grey bead. The place where demons are sealed is also known as the place where gods fight. There are countless ruins inside and contain many treasures. This grey bead was obtained by his enemy from a newly opened ruins. After taking out the grey bead, Tong Kun shook his hand and threw it away from the Grey Stone Giant. The Pearl of Disaster, also known as the Pearl of Curse. This bead is the relic of the fallen god of disaster. It is a half-step god-level treasure. This bead is an orb condensed from the cursed auras emitted by 333 powerful gods who fell under the great disaster. This bead can only be held by those who have the body of natural disasters or earthly disasters. Only those with a complete disaster body can use it. If others hold it, they will be possessed by bad luck. And after you get this bead, you can't abandon it. Once abandoned, it will be possessed by 10 times the bad luck in an instant. Outside the fog, Chen Ronghuo has been watching Tong Kun's every move. After he saw Tong Kun taking out a grey bead, he immediately identified it subconsciously. But when he identified the properties of this cursed bead, his pupils suddenly shrank. According to the information he had received before, there seemed to be only 10 half-step pillar gods in the current world of gods. Even after the golden god is promoted to the 4th pillar god, there may only be 9 half-step pillar gods left in the world of gods. But now, the thing that appeared in front of him turned out to be a half-step god-level relic. This simply made his heart beat violently. The most important thing is, he himself is the body of natural disaster. And he also knows how to obtain the complete body of disaster. In the mist, after Tong Kun threw the Pearl of Disaster in his hand, he immediately moved his body, trying to avoid the Grey Stone Giant's next attack. But as soon as his body moved, a hint of panic suddenly flashed through his heart. Then, he turned his left eye and looked to the right. The right eye was turning and looking to the left. "You're not dead yet." His left eye showed a fierce light and he spoke. Master, you are not dead, how could I die? His right eye revealed a look of heartbreaking hatred, and he spoke with the same mouth. Not far away, the grey stone giant didn't care about the pearl of disaster thrown by Tong Kun. It can sense that there is no energy in the bead. In this case, given his physique, such a small bead could not cause any harm to him at all. Therefore, without dodging or dodging, the disaster bead cleverly landed on its body in a stone hole shot by the dynasty. In this regard, the grey stone giant just made its choice through actions. Boom! He raised the big tree in his hand and hit Tong Kun, who was not far away, suddenly motionless for some unknown reason. Asshole, do you want to die with me? Seeing the grey stone giant lifting a tree and smashing it at him, Tong Kun yelled madly and furiously. But then, another sentence came out of his mouth, ha 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 ha, you are right, I just want to die with you, I just want to die with you. Boom! There was a loud bang. Just when the grey stone giant hit a tree, Tong Kun, or Xie Dongjun's body exploded with a roar. The approaching grey stone giant bore the brunt of the attack. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 249. Xie Dongjun's body suddenly exploded, just like a meteorite thrown into the lake. There was a loud bang, and the fog trap laid by Zhen Qiansan was instantly disintegrated by the ripples generated by the explosion. The fluctuations this time were much stronger than the aftermath of the previous battle between Tong Kun and the grey stone giant. The grey stone giant that bore the brunt was caught off guard and was immediately blown backwards. In an instant, countless stone chips fell from it. After a while, when the fluctuations disappeared, it made a thud and knelt on the ground. After kneeling on the ground, it slowly raised its head and looked around at a loss. I don't know why I knelt down. Grey stone giant. Status, seriously injured, all strength is gone. In the distance, Chen Ronghuo breathed a sigh of relief after identifying the attributes of the grey stone giant. He never expected that Tong Kun and Xie Dongjun would lose their lives in this way. 10 times the bad luck. Thinking about it, he shook his head and immediately said, Dynasty, go kill it. This. Wang Chao hesitated slightly when he heard this. At this time, their group had all refined experience crystals. In other words, if all of them kill this grey stone giant with only one breath left, their cultivation level will be greatly improved. And he has followed Chen Ronghuo for the shortest time. He should not be chosen to be the one who finally kills the grey stone giant. Seeing Cao Cao's expression, Chen Ronghuo said calmly, you have the highest cultivation level among us now. After you kill this grey stone giant at the early stage of the 4th stage, you should be able to reach the peak of the 3rd stage soon. The stronger your cultivation is, the faster our future development will be. This time, he himself did not kill the grey stone giant. He believed that if he let Dynasty kill him, no one else would have any objections. Moreover, it would be in his best interest to let the Dynasty take action and let the Dynasty's cultivation reach the peak of the 3rd level as quickly as possible. Yes. After hearing this, Wang Chao finally made up his mind. He looked at the grey stone giant kneeling on the ground in the distance, grabbed it with both hands, and once again grabbed the illusory soul of the divine bow. Then the blood energy was condensed into an arrow, and with a whoosh, the blood energy arrow was like a rainbow, instantly piercing the void, soaring in front of the grey stone giant in the blink of an eye, with stone fragments flying in the air, and shot in from its eye socket. Plop! The still confused grey stone giant fell to the ground with a thud, leaving behind a large pile of gold, silver, and copper coins, as well as 2 treasures. This big guy is a little silly. Huh. Suddenly, Huang Lin, Zhen Qinzan, Zhu Deipen and Li Haishui were all startled and confused. What's wrong? Chen Ronghuo asked in surprise. But immediately, he seemed to have thought of something, and said casually, is it possible that you also absorbed part of the demonic origin of the Black Demon Star through the experience crystal? He suddenly thought that during the previous battle, besides him, Xuanhuan and Zhenkinzan and others also helped. In this case, will the distribution of experience points be based on the team mode? After all, in his opinion, the gods of the world of gods seem to be planning to turn the world of gods into a game. I did get a bit of my original power, but not too much. Xuanlin said, although he had taken action before, the number of attempts was the least. Several other people also nodded. Among them, Zhu Deipen had a smile on his face. Lord, I feel like I got a lot. Just now, he was the most aggressive. If we only talk about the number of shots, I am afraid that even Tongkan, who fought head-on with Greystone, and Dynasty, who fired his bow more than a dozen times in total, can't compare. This is really the case. After hearing the answers from several people, Chen Ronghuo rubbed his fingers and then turned to look at Wang Chao. Seeing Chen Ronghuo looking at him, Cao Cao pondered for a moment and said, Lord, I should be able to break through to the peak of the third level in 7 or 8 days. When Chen Ronghuo heard this, he nodded immediately. Originally, it would take more than 2 months for the dynasty to break through to the peak of the third level. Now it has been shortened to 7 or 8 days, which shows how much effect killing this Greystone giant at the early stage of the 4th level has on him. And this is after Xuanlin and Zhu Deipen all share some of the original power of the Black Demon Star. 7 or 8 days, that's fine. After nodding, Chen Ronghuo moved in front of the Greystone giant and reached out with his left hand. Petrified skin add 1. Petrified skin add 1. Brush. Suddenly, just when Chen Ronghuo took out 2 petrified skin attributes from the Greystone giant's body, its body disappeared from his eyes in an instant, as if it had been stimulated. Is this refreshed? Chen Ronghuo's eyes were a little strange. The ghost-faced piranha that he crushed to death before didn't refresh so fast. Moreover, Chen Ronghuo glanced around and found that although the Greystone giant had been refreshed, the big tree that was previously carried by the Greystone giant was still lying on the ground and had not been refreshed. Interesting. His eyes fell on the big tree, and then he stretched out his left hand towards it. Giant wood vitality add 1. Giant wood vitality add 1. Brush. Suddenly, this time, after Chen Ronghuo also took out 2 attributes from the big tree, just like the Greystone giant just now, it also flashed with light and disappeared from his eyes. This is not a collection technique. Chen Ronghuo took a deep breath, feeling a little depressed. With his ability, he usually has to touch the monster to ashes and annihilate it before he gives up. But now, after just touching it twice, the monster disappeared. Usually only the collection skills in the game are like this, right? Shaking his head, Chen Ronghuo swept through with his soul power and found the pearl of disaster that was blown away by the aftermath of the explosion, as well as Tongkan and Xiedongjun's storage rings, and collected them all. Both of their storage rings were extraordinary, and even in the explosion like that just now, there was no sign of damage. As for the pearl of disaster, let alone it. After doing this, Chen Ronghuo collected the gold, silver, and copper coins exploded by the Greystone giant, as well as the 2 treasures it exploded. Immediately he said, let's go and collect that mountain peak, and then return to the important town of Longtan. We'll talk about other things later. The town cannot be left without a strong person in charge for a long time. Yes. Several people agreed. Then the group of people immediately rushed towards the mountain peak where Tongkan was suppressed before. On the way, Chen Ronghuo identified the 2 treasures exploded by the Greystone giant. One of these 2 treasures is a gray-white stone ball. One is a piece of green crystal wood. The 4th level heart of Greystone, the 4th level heart of giant wood. Special treasure. After refining stone attribute, wood attribute, cultivators or demons, they can improve their cultivation level, and at the same time, Their stone transformation, wood attribute, talent can be enhanced to a certain extent. It is easy for Chen Ronghuo to understand the acquisition of the Heart of Greystone. As for the heart of the giant tree, he thought for a while and then guessed that it might have something to do with the big tree that the Greystone giant carried, which showed no signs of breaking no matter how he swung it. It seems that the big river crab is lucky again this time, and the colorful spiritual butterfly's cultivation can also improve faster. Chen Ronghuo's heart moved slightly. But compared to the two items, his biggest gain this time was obviously the Pearl of Disaster. He played with the Pearl of Disaster in his hand and felt it was slightly cold to the touch. Thinking of Tong Kun's death, Chen Ronghuo shook his head. This thing can really be said to be an incredible treasure. Zhou Yuanhua, he muttered to himself. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 250. Not long after, Chen Ronghuo and his party arrived at the strange mountain peak. At this time, Tong Kun's body was still suppressed under the mountain peak. Chen Ronghuo used the identification technique of ancient books. Suppressing the God Mountain, Remnant, you saw the fragments of a powerful artifact. Practitioners below level 5 are suppressed by this mountain and cannot escape by any means. This mountain cannot be completely refined until it is complete, and can only be controlled through specific blood symbols. The composition of the blood talisman is #UN*U00026. After identifying the nature of this mountain, Chen Ronghuo was slightly stunned. Bad luck is really a kind of luck. He sighed in his heart, not knowing how to describe Tong Kun's luck. From Mazixuan, he already knew what happened to Tong Kun before. Knowing that Tong Kun was sneak attacked by a stone ball-shaped monster, and then after he killed the monster, he was suppressed by a treasure exploded by it. This kind of luck can really be said to be rare in 100 years. However, Chen Ronghuo didn't know until now that the treasure that suppressed Tong Kun and made him unable to escape despite all his efforts was actually a fragment of a divine weapon. Obviously, if Tong Kun's luck had not been extremely bad, this object would not have exploded from the stone ball-shaped monster. With a thought in his heart, Chen Ronghuo immediately forced out a trace of blood from the fingers of his right hand, and with the power of his soul, he drew out from the void the blood talisman that controlled the fragments of the Zhenshen mountain guided by the ancient book. He is not proficient in making talismans. But he has been in this world for so long that he understands it somewhat. Coupled with his control of his soul power and the guidance of ancient books, he successfully drew out this rune in a moment. Buzz. After the blood talisman was completed, Chen Ronghuo threw it on the Zhenshen mountain. The Zhenshen mountain immediately emitted bursts of light, and then in the eyes of everyone, it quickly shrank to the size of a palm and fell into Chen Ronghuo's hands. Huh! Suddenly, Chen Ronghuo let out a light sigh. Wherever he looked, he saw a pile of gold, silver, copper coins, and several shining treasures next to Tong Kun's body at the bottom of Zhenshen mountain. The monster that was killed by Tong Kun and the treasure that exploded were suppressed by Zhenshen mountain together with Tong Kun before Tong Kun could collect them. In an instant, Chen Ronghuo guessed the cause of the matter. I wonder what that stone ball monster exploded. Out of curiosity, Chen Ronghuo stretched out his hand and grabbed the treasures and a pile of gold, silver, and copper coins from the air. His method of grabbing objects in the void is the result of the combination of the power of the soul and the power of qi and blood, which is very convenient. Stone Essence, 4th level rare treasures. After being refined by stone attribute cultivators or demons, their cultivation and talents can be enhanced. Essence of Stone, level 4 treasure. After use, it can increase the cultivation level of stone attribute cultivators. Heart of the Giant Stone, level 4 rare treasures. Stone attribute cultivators or demon refining, may gain the innate ability to enlarge the body. When Chen Ronghuo identified several treasures together, a look of confusion suddenly appeared on his face. During this period, if the big river crab is not lucky, it will definitely be favored by the river crab goddess. Otherwise, how could he obtain a bunch of treasures one after another, most of which turned out to be useful to the big guy? Let's go. Shaking his head helplessly, Chen-Ronghuo Tonkin put away the body and said to everyone. There was no words all the way, and soon the group rushed back to the important town of Longtan. After returning to the important town of Longtan, Chen-Ronghuo immediately went to the Golden Temple and paid to send the several treasures useful to the river crabs and the heart of the giant tree, which was useful to the colorful spiritual butterflies, to Lushwiven town for a fee. With so many treasures, coupled with the previous black and white mist, Chen-Ronghuo believed that the cultivation level of the big river crab would definitely improve by leaps and bounds in the future. The big river crab is Chen-Ronghuo's demonic pet. As its cultivation level increases, Chen-Ronghuo's cultivation level will also increase rapidly. In this way, the day passed quickly. During this day, the teams he sent out all made rapid progress. Long distances were opened in the direction of each village. The next day, in the Lord's mansion of the important town of Longtan, Chen-Ronghuo sat at the top, took out the map of the island where the important town of Longtan was located, pointed out the locations one by one from the top, and said to everyone, "Ho-san, here, here, and here, there is something suitable for you. Level 3 monsters killed. Jinkin-san, I chose this place for you, and here." During this time, Ho-san and others were busy working with him, and they all made great contributions. It's really unreasonable for him not to reward a few people. It was just an ordinary reward, useless to a few people, so he came up with such an idea. Guided them on where to find suitable monsters to kill on this island. In this way, by killing the monsters from the Black Demon Star on the island, a few people can improve their own strength and help him clean up the hidden dangers on the island. This is killing two birds with one stone. After Chen-Ronghuo gave the guidance, the eyes of Ho-san and others all brightened up. For them, no matter how good other rewards are, they are not as good as rewards that can quickly improve their cultivation. Moreover, Chen-Ronghuo guided these demons to them. Almost all of them were monsters of the same level as them. All of them are extremely confident in their own strength. There is absolutely no reason to be afraid of monsters of the same level. They are afraid of encountering an invincible existence while rushing around. For example, the Grey Stone Giant, or the existence of the Blue Lightning Thunderbirds. And now, the instructions given by Chen-Ronghuo all have specific paths. Obviously, these existences have been avoided. Seeing that all his subordinates have left, Chen-Ronghuo took a deep breath. While learning the dynasty, he never forgot to practice while walking, sitting, or lying down. At the same time, he was alone in Longtan town. In this state, time passed day by day. A few days later, the teams he sent out led the villagers of a village affiliated with Longtan town to Longtan town. Then, one after another, other teams also led their respective mission targets back from other places on the island. Of course, during this period, most teams encountered difficulties. There were definitely more deaths. There were even some teams that accidentally encountered powerful wandering monsters, and more than half of them were killed or injured. Even among the dozen or so second-level practitioners, 2 died in this mission. Chen-Ronghuo was powerless to do anything about this, and could only increase the compensation for the families of the dead. At the same time, he also increased the rewards for all those who made contributions. For example, experience crystals. After such a long time, more than half of the people in each of the dozen teams in Longtan town have received experience crystals as rewards. Under such circumstances, time flies, and more than half a month has passed. Thanks to the book friend Huang Hezishuishan Shanglei for the 2,000 coin reward, and the book friend Umadankin for the 1,000 coin reward at. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 251. Green Water Bay Town. Under the large green water outside the town, the big river crab, which was already as huge as a small mountain, got into the soil under the green water, looking at the essence of stone, and the heart of the stone that were still left in front of it. The three treasures carefully spit out a bubble. Now it really doesn't dare to move too vigorously. With its current size, a slight movement of its body will cause large waves. There is no telling how many boats will be overturned when rowing through the green water. For a moment, its protruding eyes focused on the heart of the boulder. Let's talk about the growth of cultivation first. I'd better continue to grow bigger. The heart of the stone can make the body of a stone demon become even larger. The big river crab, on the other hand, has an almost obsessive pursuit of getting bigger. Of course, the bigger it is, the stronger its strength and defense will be. Call. As soon as it sucked it in, the huge stone heart was sucked into its mouth and began to be refined. As for the original power of the two black and white mist demons that Chen Ronghuo sent him back at the beginning, he had refined them over the past half-month. At the same time, he was refining the grey stone heart that Chen Ronghuo exploded from the body of the grey stone giant. After refining so many treasures, Dahi Crab's cultivation has reached the late third level. At this time, if you look at it from a high altitude, with the island where Xuanhuan town is located as the center, several surrounding islands, including the island where the important town of Longtan is located, began to accelerate towards the green after the big river crab refined two more black and white fog evil spirits. Xuanhuan town came closer. Even among the islands approaching Green Water Bay Town, there is a floating island that originally belonged to Black Mist Island. At the same time, Black Mist Island. The main city is Black Mist City. A man in black, shrouded in a cloak, slowly pulled out a soft purple blood sword from the chest of a richly dressed man sitting on the Lord's throne in the Lord's mansion of Black Mist City. Who are you? Wanyang Chang, the Lord of Black Mist City and a fourth-level peak practitioner, spoke in a hoarse voice. He had been waiting for this day. He just wants to know who is plotting to kill him. As early as a few years ago, he was poisoned and his strength declined severely. It was precisely because of this that Beiwu Island underwent drastic changes. So many of his men suggested that he attack Beiwu Island, but he did not agree. Because once he agrees, his own strength will be exposed. Puff. The purple blood soft sword was completely pulled out, and Wanyang Chang fell down on his lord's throne with a pop. As soon as Wanyang Chang died, the figure shrouded in black robes took off Wanyang Chang's storage ring. After a moment, he took out a fist-sized, dark, and shiny bead. Black Mist Spirit Pearl. It was only then that the man in black robes in the cloak uttered a sentence in a hoarse voice. Even if Wanyang Chang doesn't put the Black Mist Spirit Pearl in his storage ring, he still has a way to find it. As his thoughts swirled, he flipped his hand and suddenly took out 3 transparent porcelain bottles from his storage ring. If you look carefully, you can see that each of these 3 transparent porcelain bottles contains a wisp of black and white mist. This black and white mist is the source of black and white mist. The cloaked man opened the 3 porcelain bottles one after another, and immediately the 3 black and white mist evil spirits inside emerged like snakes, and after a flash, they got into the black mist spirit beads in his hands. Buzz. After absorbing the source of the black and white mist evil, the black mist spirit bead immediately shook slightly. If you look from the sky at this time, you can see that with the island where Black Mist City is located as the center, the surrounding floating islands are all moving towards it. At the same moment, in Beiwu City. Second uncle. 3 men and 1 woman stood in front of an old man wearing a flame robe, all showing respect. These 3 boys and 1 girl are the 3 sons and 1 girl of the eldest grandson Zheng Xin. As for the old man in the flame robe, if you take a closer look, you will find that he is at least 80 similar to the aging grandson Zheng Xin. His name is Changsun Genjiang, and he is the younger brother of Changsun Genjiang. You guys, it's been a long time since I last saw you. In a blink of an eye, it's been more than 100 years. Changsun Genjiang shook his head and sighed. Especially when his eyes fell on the woman among the four, he showed a hint of admiration and said, "And Xiao Yi, I didn't expect that in just over 100 years, you would break through to the 4th level. I'm just entering the 4th level for the first time. I can't compare to you, my second uncle, who has already cultivated to the late 4th level." The eldest grandson, who was born with sword-shaped eyebrows, was not very beautiful, but the sword hung at his waist gave people a sense of sharpness. Hearing this, the eldest grandson showed a rare smile. "Why?" Changsun Genjiang sighed. More than 100 years ago, in order to take a step closer to his cultivation, he took the initiative to enter the demon-sealed land. Unexpectedly, more than 100 years later, he accidentally passed through a space rift and returned to Beiwu Island, where everything had changed. Chang Sunping, suddenly, he turned his gaze and landed on Chang Sunping. His bright light flashed and said, "Tell me the truth. My eldest brother is really..." Second uncle Chang Sunping said with a wry smile after hearing this, "We don't know what happened to my father. When he left Beiwu City that day, he only left us a letter saying, it was because he was dying, and after that, he never came back." Changsun Genjiang suddenly frowned. "Never mind." Suddenly, Changsun Genjiang said, "Let's not talk about this for now. Since I'm back this time and Xiao Ai has also broken through to the 4th level, then I will help you unify Beiwu Island first. If I remember correctly, this period of time should be the time when the Black and White Fog Evil was born. Next, you should collect the Black and White Fog Evil as soon as possible and integrate the Black and White Fog Evil into the White Fog Spirit Beads, so that the collapsed Beiwu Island can be reunited." "Yes." The four brothers and sisters of Chang Sunping immediately agreed. Longtan, important town. After practicing for more than half a month, Chen Ronghuo finally let out a long breath and raised his cultivation from the early 3rd level to the middle 3rd level. Originally, according to his plan, if he didn't kill the 3rd level monsters on the island, it would take more than a month. But because the big river crab advanced to the late 3rd level, it fed back and allowed him to practice to the middle 3rd level more than a month in advance. Even if he advanced from the middle 3rd level to the late 3rd level, it could shorten a long time. And if the big river crab refines all the remaining 2 treasures that can improve his cultivation will be further improved, and his cultivation speed can be accelerated again. Chen Ronghuo shook his head. He really didn't expect that he could get something in return from that big guy. "It's time to go back to Greenwater Bay Town," he muttered to himself. Through calculations, Chen Ronghuo knew that the floating island where the important town of Longtan was located was moving towards Greenwater Bay Town, and it was getting faster and faster. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chaoji Depeng. Chapter 252. During this period of time, all Chen Ronghuo's subordinates have made rapid progress. The dynasty has already reached the peak of the 3rd level. After breaking through to the peak of the 3rd level, he immediately followed Chen Ronghuo's instructions and worked hard to practice the secret techniques. With the talent of the dynasty, once the skills and secrets of the divine Bao Soul are cultivated to the current limit, it is not impossible to counter-attack the 4th level with the peak cultivation level of the 3rd level. At that time, he could quickly advance by killing the 4th level monsters from the Black Demon Star on the island. At the same time, Huang Lin, Zhen Qian-san, Zhu Daipen, and Li Haishui have all advanced to the mid-level 3rd level. Even Zhang Ji, who has been training the Black Silk Army, took 2 shots with the Black Silk Army and performed well. My strength has improved too slowly. Chen Ronghuo shook his head. Compared with the progress rate of his subordinates, because he has been sitting in the important town of Longtan and has not gone out to hunt monsters, so even if the big river crab feeds back his strength, the speed of his cultivation is a bit slow. I don't know where Zhou Yuanhua has gone. Chen Ronghuo began to deduce Zhou Yuanhua's position. After obtaining the Pearl of Disaster, he would often use ancient books to calculate Zhou Yuan's transformation. It was only after a few calculations that he discovered that Zhou Yuanhua somehow ended up on a floating island belonging to Black Mist Island. The floating island was too far away, so he could only wait. Suddenly, Chen Ronghuo let out a light sigh. Through the deduction, he found that the energy required for his deduction of Zhou Yuanhua this time had significantly increased. Originally, the energy he needed to deduce Zhou Yuanhua was only slightly more than that of an ordinary third-level early-stage cultivator. But now, his consumption of deducing Zhou Yuanhua has even exceeded that of an average mid-level third-level cultivator. I actually advanced. An inexplicable look flashed in Chen Ronghuo's eyes. The energy required to deduce Zhou Yuanhua has increased, which is obviously because Zhou Yuanhua's cultivation level has increased again. Zhou Yuanhua was different from him. He had many supports to advance to several levels in such a short period of time, while Zhou Yuanhua just fought hard on his own. It's good to be promoted. Chen Ronghuo's heart moved. Then he consumed his soul power and deduced Zhou Yuanhua's position. He is now particularly concerned about Zhou Yuanhua's every move. Zhou Yuanhua is the inheritor of Earth Disaster. If he kills him, he will obtain the complete law of disaster and transform into the body of disaster. Once his physique is transformed into the body of disaster, he will obviously be able to use the half-step pillar god-level treasure, the Pearl of Disaster. Moreover, if he kills Zhou Yuanhua, he can also get all of Zhou Yuanhua's power. It can be said that killing Zhou Yuanhua will be of great benefit to him. South, 100 miles away, the floating island where the important town of Kurogiri Island is located, quickly approaching. 100 miles, approaching quickly. In a moment, Chen Ronghuo calculated Zhou Yuanhua's location, and his eyes immediately lit up. Now in this area of water, most of the floating islands split between White Mist Island and Black Mist Island are in irregular motion. It is normal for Zhou Yuanhua's island to quickly approach his island. The most important thing is that 100 miles is already a very short distance to him now. Chen Ronghuo quickly stood up from the Lord's throne. At the same time, the floating island where the important town of Vision is located. Zhou Yuanhua stood on an altar outside the city wall of Yuanjing City, looking into the distance with a look of madness in his eyes. Not long ago, he killed the owner of the distant town in a sneak attack. So now, he is the new Lord of Vision City. However, after becoming the new Lord of Vision Town and breaking the Lord statue of the original Lord of Vision Town, he did not erect a statue of his own Lord here. Because now he is used to taking the wrong path. At this time, in front of him, stood a large number of guard teams from the important town of Vision. Each team guarded a large number of low-level demons that rushed into the world of gods from the gate of the Black Demon Star. Teams formed into long queues. Ouch! In the Long Dragon, countless low-level demons were beaten to pieces and were wailing endlessly. Kill! Suddenly, Zhou Yuanhua waved his hand and issued an order. As his order was issued, more than a dozen second-level cultivators under him immediately raised their knives, like executioners, raising and lowering the knives, and chopped off the heads of monsters one after another. After such a long time, most people already know that massacre of low-level demons coming from the Black Demon Star will arouse the hatred and pursuit of high-level demons. If these second-level cultivators massacred first-level demons on such a large scale, or even some non-level demons, it would definitely not take long before they would attract powerful demons. But under Zhou Yuanhua's high pressure, no one dared to resist his orders. I can only pray in my heart that Zhou Yuanhua is really powerful and can kill all the powerful demons that come after a while. The blood flowed into a river, the pungent smell of blood, and the scenes of killing made some practitioners who were not determined to frown. But when Zhou Yuanhua saw this scene, there was only expectation in his eyes. Boom! Suddenly, there was something in the distance, destroying trees along the way and charging towards them. Xuanhuan looked over, his eyes slightly bright. Then he took a deep breath, turned over his hand and took out a 3-foot-long purple needle. He held the long needle, pinched his fingers, and chanted something. After a moment, he suddenly threw the long needle, which turned into a purple dragon. It roared and flew around him, then drilled into the ground like lightning. Earth Vein Dragon Needle. This is a one-time treasure Xuanhuan got. Using the Earth Vein Dragon Needle, you can stimulate the earth veins in the surrounding area. Cause a major earthquake in this area. And in the next period of time, use the power of the Earth Vein Dragon for your own use. Use the people in Yuanjing town to capture a large number of low-level demons, and then have people slaughter these demons to attract powerful demons to attack. Then he borrowed the power of the Earth Vein Dragon to slaughter those powerful demons one by one, and then used the experience crystal to seize the power of those demons. This is one of the purposes of his action this time. Boom! After the Earth Vein Dragon Needle was inserted into the ground, the entire floating island shook violently. It was like a sudden earthquake, shaking all the townspeople of Yuanjing town, as well as all the lives on the island. At this moment, countless houses collapsed on the island. How many cracks appeared on the ground? Earth disaster. Seeing this scene, Xuanhuan's eyes became even crazier. As the inheritor of the earth disaster, as long as he artificially creates a powerful earth disaster, he can absorb the strange breath from this powerful earth disaster, thereby quickly improving his cultivation. So this time, using the Earth Vein Dragon Needle is actually a means of killing 2 birds with 1 stone for him. What belongs to me will eventually belong to me. Xuanhuan muttered to himself. If his plan goes well this time, he will be able to break through to the late 3rd stage today. It is not impossible to even touch the peak of the 3rd stage. Something happened, so the update is late, sorry, keep working hard. Thanks to Xingyi Chongming for the 300 coin reward.